Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are having an absolutely fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Before we get into today's video, I do have to give a quick little disclaimer because normally I have her go like in my bedroom or downstairs while I'm filming, but right now my French bulldog Blue is like nestled so cute on my office chair, and when I went to go over to say like, baby, mommy's about to film, she gave me like these little eyes like, please let me stay. So I'm letting her stay, but she has a tendency of snorting and snoring. So if you guys hear that, I sincerely apologize, but I love her too much and she looks too dang cute right now for me to kick her out. So yeah. And for those of you who are gonna come at me and say it's mean to kick my dog out, I'm not like kicking her out in a mean way. I'm just saying she can't snore in here while I'm filming, for your guys' sake. But with that being said, let's get into today's video because today's paranormal story time is absolutely chilling. And everybody that I've shared this story with prior to filming it has said that I do have to bring it here on my channel because they were thinking about it for days afterwards and it changed their perspective on their own lives. So without further ado, let's dive right on into it. So today's video has to do with a little girl named Sadie. Now, all throughout her early childhood years, Sadie was very, very close with her grandfather. They did absolutely everything together, and he just had an immense amount of love for this little girl. Unfortunately, though, when Sadie would turn 7 years old, her grandfather would sadly pass away. And this was really, really hard on Sadie. Now, I relate to this because I lost my grandpa when I was 13 years old. I was in the 7th grade, and that pain has never went away from me. We were so close, and I miss him every single day. So I can understand how hard that would be to process, especially at 7 years old. So her parents said that Sadie was taking the loss of her grandfather really hard. She was withdrawing from people, she didn't want to socialize, her teachers were calling and saying she wasn't participating in school, and overall her well-being and happiness was declining when she didn't have him in her life anymore. And this broke her parents' heart because she was only 7 years old and they watched the light in her kind of pass on when the grandpa passed. And all that they wanted was to get that light back in her. So her mom started telling her that she could pray to Grandpa in heaven and talk to him whenever she wanted to. So Sadie was reluctant, but eventually one morning she comes downstairs and says how last night she was praying to Grandpa and Grandpa came to her room and they were talking all night long. And her parents didn't know whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. They were confused. They didn't know if it was a coping mechanism, if she was actually seeing a ghost, or if she was just making this up. But either way, they saw this joy in her again, so they didn't shut her down on it. They told her that that was beautiful and that, yeah, she can talk to Grandpa anytime just because he's not here. He is in heaven, and that's a beautiful thing. So this went on for majority of the first half of the year. Randomly, Sadie would say, I talked to Grandpa last night, or last night when Grandpa was here, and it was becoming a habit for her. She was constantly talking with her grandpa. And the more that she was talking with her grandpa, the more her parents wondered if everything was okay with Sadie. They actually wondered if they shouldn't have said that she could talk to him all the time because they wondered if she was coping with imagining her grandfather still being there, if that makes sense. So they didn't know how to take this and they didn't know how to move forward, but they didn't want to take away that joy that they were finally seeing in her again, so they didn't really say much. Now flash forward, it was Christmas time and Christmas Eve was quickly approaching. Now, Sadie's family had very set traditions. They would go to a family member's house, they would have this big Christmas Eve dinner, and they would stay there pretty late at night. They would get there around 6 p.m. and they would wind up leaving like 1 a.m. They really enjoyed their Christmas Eves, which I think is pretty standard for families. And so this year they were preparing to go on Christmas Eve. And within the week leading up to it, one night Sadie comes out of her room, rushing into her parents' room and says, we can't go to their house for Christmas Eve. And she was like, what do you mean we can't go? And she was like, we can't go. Grandpa says we have to stay home on Christmas Eve. We can't go out. Now her parents wondered if the reason that she didn't want to go to their family member's house for Christmas Eve was because she knew her grandpa wouldn't be there. So she wanted to stay home where grandpa was. So they told her, I'm sorry, Sadie, but we're going to go to said family member's house, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But each day getting closer to Christmas Eve, she kept coming out more and more frantic, saying, Grandpa says we can't leave the house on Christmas Eve. We need to stay home. Her parents were really frustrated at this point in time. They're like, she's clearly not coping with this well, but we're going on Christmas Eve. It will be good for her to spend time with her cousins and her aunts, her uncles, and everybody. So they told Sadie, I'm sorry, Sadie, we're still going on Christmas Eve. Flash forward to Christmas Eve. The entire day, Sadie is just a nightmare. She's miserable. She's kicking and screaming and saying she won't go. Grandpa says don't go. Grandpa was very serious. Don't go. And at this point, her parents are getting so frustrated with the situation that they start like bickering amongst one another. One is saying, well, maybe we should just stay home. The other is saying, no, we're going. And it's causing this whole family fight to the point where later on that night, they just decided, you know what? Sadie's going to be a nightmare tonight. We won't go. So they called the family member and said, hey, we won't be there, unfortunately, tonight. Now, everybody was really disappointed by this. And actually, supposedly they were saying, I think it's just Sadie's coping mechanism. Like, come, we want to see you. But Sadie would not stop. She would cry, scream, kick, like till she was blue in the face, saying, Grandpa says no. So they have an average dinner at their house for Christmas Eve. At around 8 p.m., Sadie goes to go to her room. Everybody goes to go to sleep except for Sadie's dad, and he's downstairs. And that was when a fire started in their house due to an electrical malfunction, and he was able to catch it and stop it just in time to save their house. And if they had been out of their house on Christmas Eve, chances are their entire house would have actually burned down to the ground. So this gave her parents absolute chills, just realizing that perhaps Sadie really was talking to her grandfather, and he actually saved all of their belongings in their home. Everything that they had was in that home, and they would have came home on Christmas Eve to no home had Sadie not have made this big stink. And the next morning, Sadie came downstairs and said Grandpa was really thankful that they chose not to go. Now, supposedly, it's been years now. Sadie's grown out of talking to her grandpa all the time, as most kids wind up doing. But her parents still remember that Christmas Eve where her grandfather saved all of their lives by convincing this little girl to put up a fight and not let them leave on Christmas Eve. This story was absolutely chilling to me, you guys, because there's so many times in life where our deceased loved ones, our guides, our angels, the universe is working in our favor to protect us, and our intuition and feelings can be your angels or guides or loved ones guiding you to save you. There's been many stories that I've read, especially back when I was younger, where people would have an intuition to not go somewhere, and it would save their life making that split-second decision. You have to trust your intuition. You have to trust your gut, because you never know what it could be saving you from. So I want to know from you guys, was there ever a time in your life where maybe you slept in and it ended up saving, your life, or, a situation where your intuition told you not to go somewhere or do something and it wound up proving to be the best decision you could have made? I would love to know any of those types of stories down in the comment section below. And that is it for today's video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I can honestly say it was one that I was excited to share with you, because even though we talk about some really dark things here, I love to bring these stories up with you guys and share the beautiful side of the paranormal and the supernatural and the spiritual realm. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would seriously love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up. Blue was such a good girl the whole time. Maybe she could be my filming buddy going forward. But I love you guys so very much. Remember, my loves, to do all things with kindness. And until tomorrow, I love you guys.